Hello wotv community. Today I've set up this neat little spreadsheet and there's going to be pictures of this for quick reference on my Discord server if you want to download those. But I made a quick reference guide for all the best weapons in the game, starting with swords. So let's start with the physical side first. You can see the magical side kind of peeking out over there, but physical side first, going with the general swords, what you're going to want to equip to everybody. First, we have the blood sword. This is the legendary reliquaries weapon. It is one that, swords are just so common, and this is such a cool and useful ability set here that I think that everybody's probably going to want to +5 this one. I know the Genji glove is really useful, and absolutely try to full clear the legendary reliquaries, but I'd be trying to build the blood sword if I had to pick. And people who can't fully complete the legendary reliquaries will have to pick, and I think the blood sword's a great pick. 204 attack makes it the strongest weapon, or the strongest offensive skill stat on this whole list for magic or for attack. Supporting stats aren't great here. 5 critical is only okay, and it's the only supporting stat really that we get from this that I'm tracking. But the passives are really where it becomes powerful. Other than that 204 attack stat, that's pretty rough. 20 slash attack is I think the highest slash attack mod that we have in the game right now, so that is pretty strong for it. Human killer of 10. This is a general human killer, so it also works for magic scaling attacks. The general human killer here is really helpful for upgrading your damage just across the board. It's a pretty good bonus. It may as well be increased damage across the board, which is just kind of the best thing that you're going to get. And this also benefits the bonus damage of a lot of typeless follow-up skills. So for instance, this will boost the damage of, say, Bartz's follow-up skill, or even though it's a really strange one, Noctis's follow-up skill also gets boosted by this as well. And in addition to all of that, it will heal you back 15% of damage done on a critical hit. There's not a lot of crit support on this sword itself, so you're going to want to run it with some sort of crit support in terms of equipment, in terms of your Truststone passives, but this is almost certainly the best physical sword and really good for keeping your units in the game. That passive healing on criticals, which have become really consistent for certain units nowadays, that's a really good way to keep a unit in the game. Second best sword in my opinion, this might be a little bit of a controversial pick, but the Mythgraven Blade. There's probably a lot of people in this game who haven't heard of the Mythgraven Blade. It was a Trials of Reckoning, I think Trials of Reckoning round 2 deal for, oh my gosh, I'm forgetting which Final Fantasy this is. It's on with Cecil. Is that 4? I think so. It was with that rerun that we got the Mythgraven Blade, and it is quite the sword. It is one of the few UR swords. In addition, the Blood Sword is also a UR sword, so it's kind of up there in that power tier with it, I believe. 171 attack power is a little bit low for what it is, but it does have good supporting stats with 13 accuracy and 4 critical. And then we've got slash attack 20, which, as I told you before, is the highest slash attack modifier you're going to find on a sword. And then 20 AP cost down. 20 AP cost down is kind of a big deal. Like, your skills just cost 20% less. You don't even have to go through the extra step of acquired AP, which means that for certain units, they're going to be able to use skills right off the bat, to where maybe acquired AP might, like a higher number of acquired AP might be better on in the long term of the fight. This is going to give you a lot of power right off the bat, which is going to be fun for certain characters. Like, for instance, this puts, for a lot of builds, King Mont in range of just LBing on his first turn, which can be really ridiculous if you berserk someone's whole team on your first turn with your tank. So, you know, it really opens the the board for a lot of fun stuff. The Spine Blade +6 got some pretty decent upgrades. It was already a fairly accurate sword to begin with. 169 attack now brings it more in line with the Mythgraven Blade, and 20 accuracy actually puts it above the Mythgraven Blade in terms of accuracy, and then 3 critical is okay. It's the lowest of the swords we've seen so far, but none of them have been impressive in terms of their critical stat. This is going to be the defense penetration sword. You also do have the option, if you want a newer sword, the Azure Glacier, but I think if you're not a fire or ice unit, you're probably going to want a Spine Blade +6 because it's going to give you an additional 10 accuracy. So this is going to be 30 accuracy, and that second 10 accuracy off the passive is going to stack not with other accuracy passives, which are kind of rare on equipment, but it is going to, like, if you are stacking a lot of accuracy in raw stats on your equipment, like going for the most accurate unit you possibly can, this will stack with all of that 100%. So you'll be getting all of that 10 accuracy instead of having to worry about how it stacks with other things. Finally, we have the Engine Blade. I almost left this one off the list, but I included the Defense Penetration Sword and almost included 2, so I figured I had to include the Slash Penetration Sword. 151 attack is probably the lowest offensive stat on this whole thing, except for maybe one place, and that's kind of a technicality. The supporting stats aren't amazing here either, although it does potentially have decent, not even good, but like magic on it. It has some magic on it, which is why some of its other stats are pretty low. Accuracy of 3, crit of 2, nothing great here. Neither of those are anything to write home about, but it is the Slash Penetration 20 sword, which makes it special, and when we finally get a +6 version of it, recollabing with Final Fantasy 15, maybe it will become a formidable weapon once again, but for right now, it's kind of the least impressive of the general swords, I would say. If you want to get a little bit more specific, warriors, knights, paladins, and duelists, main job, I believe, all have access to some really strong, newer equipment. There are some extra units that are available on this, like the Dawnlight can be equipped by Winged Stern, but mainly these swords, these job-based swords, are really great for helping out a lot of the older units and a lot of the older job classes that really need some love. They were also, in this case, helpful for making duelists not suck as much. I'm still not a fan of duelists or duelist mains or anything, but this does help them not be as bad as they could be, because believe it or not, they could be even worse, and it's probably just an indication of how poorly received that job has been, that it is kind of buffing with some of these guys. So we've got the Wave Blade, slash attack 15, that's kind of your normal general slash attack mod. 153 attack is not high, but it does have 15 critical, 3 accuracy is okay. And then we start to get into the job-specific stuff, because none of this has been impressive so far. It's a very weak sword until you get into the fact that you're also getting elemental attack 15%, acquired AP up 30%, and reaction block rate 30. Reaction block rate is probably the least impressive of those. I love that this has just general attack up 15 for elemental skills on it, which makes it a great rainbow sword, as long as you're a duelist, knight, paladin, or warrior. But this is pretty strong for those who can equip it, and usually those characters are going to really enjoy this. The thing is, there are actually some other options for the magical classes in there that weren't available when this sword first came out. When this sword first came out, I was thinking, like, it was great for all of this, but there is some more competition, especially the flowering, but we'll get into that later, because our second sword to consider if you're running a warrior, knight, paladin, or duelist is the Dawnlight. This has 168 attack, which is pretty good. It's 1 below the Spine Blade and 3 below the Mythgraven Blade, so it's up there. 6 accuracy is pretty good, but not what's going to make your character super accurate by any means. Oh, this is the Slash Penetration Sword. Yep, I'm removing the Engine Blade from this list. this is the slash penetration sword, because it's still probably just as good as the engine blade, even in this form, even without a +6, even without activating these things. But if you are one of these classes, you will also get AP consumption down 15, which is pretty close to the Mythgraven blade, but physical human killer +10. So basically this becomes in many ways a sword that I even like better than the Mythgraven blade, a little bit lower in accuracy, a little bit lower in, well, there's no slash attack mod, but there's no slash pen on this, so I like the slash attack 20 better than slash penetration 20, but I would say that this is definitely comparable and gives the Mythgraven blade a run for its money. But even if you are one of these classes, you may just end up running the Blood Sword. The Blood Sword is frickin' great. But what if you were a magical sword-wielding unit? Well, let's get into that. That's next. We have a lot more options here, and we didn't until the Final Fantasy VI collaboration came back. That really expanded what was available here, with my favorite probably being Terra's Sword, 180 magic, 2 accuracy, and 4 critical. The magic stat's pretty good, but the supporting stats are not amazing here. The passive here is going to be Spirit Penetration 20, which is alright. This is your Spirit Penetration sword if you want one, if you need Spirit Penetration on your unit. But also Agility +10 when HP is above 60%. I think that this is potentially a really huge buff to a lot of damage dealers. I think that this is probably like the go-to damage dealer sword. It's really great, especially if you need the Spirit Penetration. There are going to be some characters that you might want to use this on that already have too much Spirit Penetration or don't really need it for whatever reason, but could use the Agility. And then there's going to be characters that don't really benefit as much from the Agility in some ways, but usually Agility works pretty well for everyone. You have to get into a really specific scenario to where it's detrimental, and even then that's kind of with an asterisk, because you could change other things to make it beneficial. It's usually a benefit, really. Next, for kind of being a general sword for an offensive mage, you have the Larngren +6. It's going to have 194 magic, which is the highest magic of any sword, but it kind of stops being special from there. Only 3 accuracy and critical are pretty bad for either one, although kind of up there with the Terra Sword, I guess. Slash attack up 15 is really general, and reaction block rate 20 is something, but like, I don't know that that's really anything to care about. So really, this is just up here because it's got your slash attack up, it's got your high magic stat, and that's kind of what you want as a DPS. It doesn't really have any bells or whistles, but it is a +6 version of an older sword, so there we go. From here, we're going to be getting way more specific, though. Those were the 2 generalist swords. Everything else is going to be a bit more specific. So we have the Estrella Aurora, which is Elena's sword. If you have Elena, you have gotten this off of her challenge board. 182 magic makes it slightly stronger than Terra's sword. It also has, and wow, a lot of supporting stats here. 5 agility, which is potentially as good or better than the buff on Terra's sword, which is why it's at the top of all of the extra swords. 12 accuracy is more accuracy than any other magic sword gives. Yep, just double check that. Nope, none of them are more accurate than that, so it's the most accurate. It's the fastest, it's the most accurate, it's also the most evasive. 10 evasion, most swords don't usually give evasion, and 10 critical is also the highest critical. So it's the best in slot for all 4 supporting stats, 2 of which don't usually show up on weapons, one of which is super important. That 5 agility, just want to impress how important having 5 agility on something like this is. But the passives, slash attack and light attack up 10. Now, I don't consider this to be a light elemental sword because that buff is so garbage. It's so bad. And slash attack up 10 is lower than like the baseline. I think this is the lowest slash attack up mod on a sword. So the passives are really what's holding this back from being great here, but holy crap does this sword have some amazing raw stats that will definitely bring a lot to certain characters, especially those who want the agility, and especially those that want the evasion. Next we have Celeste's Sword. This is good for if you want to make your character beefier. 170 magic is not a ton. Accuracy of 4, critical of 3. Again, not support stats to write home about. 15 slash attack up, again, is kind of baseline. But you get 15% HP for 4 turns. So again, if we're looking at a modern tank here, often get up to like 10,000 HP plus, this is going to be a pretty good benefit. This isn't necessarily the sword that you put on most of your units, though. I do think it's pretty specific to like high HP units at the very least, if not tanks, who are going to want this the most. But I do think it's pretty specific for a thing on this list. But getting to the most specific, you might recognize this one, the Blood Sword. You know everything else about it. You know why it's great. Again, slash attack up and human killer, those are general. Those also work for magic users. So a lot of the things that make this sword the best physical option also make it a pretty great magical option. The real difference here is that instead of having over 200 attack, in this case it has only 132 magic. Now that's not the hugest handicap for some of the other benefits that you're getting here, but it's definitely not the best in show in the same way that it is on the physical side. For the magical side of job-based swords, though, there are also more options here than there were on the physical side. We have the Flowering, which came with new Howlet. That's going to have 158 magic, which is not a lot. Accuracy of 6, which is okay. Critical of 3, which is basically nothing. But this is going to be the slash penetration sword for magical users. But if you are a Spellblade Red Mage, additionally a bunch of other one-off jobs. Elena's on here, Sylvie's on here, Howlet's on here, Cecil? I don't know who that last one is necessarily. But a lot of folks are on these bonuses. AoE resistance 15 is so good. Very good. Magic damage up 10. Also quite good. And really, I think more applicable than a lot of other bonuses. Like, this is a bit better than slash attack up 15 because it's gonna be all of your magic attacks, all of your magic scaling damage. But these are only active when your HP is above 70. There's still a lot of characters who would take huge advantage of this. It's kind of unfortunate that Ferris isn't a magic unit because this would be really cool lining up with her, but it's also very similar to what her sword specifically does. Next option is the Wave Blade. This sword is actually just as good over here on this side as it was on the other side, which is not as amazing. And it has more competition, as I said, but the magic stat, the supporting stats, everything else is the same as it is on the other side. This is just as good as a magical sword as it is a physical sword. You just have to do 2 different builds to unlock the 2 different stat lines. And then finally we have Sylvie's sword. This is the one that you have if you have Sylvie. It's on her challenge board. So a lot like Elena's sword, it's going to be a really unique option here, and quite powerful as a UR sword. 177 magic, 8 accuracy is pretty good. 4 crit though is meh, but it's got 30% magic up, which is something that we just don't see on swords. This is the Whale Whisker does this for staff users, but there is nothing like this for swords, as you've seen. And especially for this is great for Sylvie because, raw big magic stats are great for healers especially. But other sword-based healing units would appreciate this as well. Do note that this is only for Sylvie, Red Mages, and Rune Knights. Spellblades got snubbed here hard, but healing power and accuracy of 15 each, both of those are pretty impactful. It has a pretty decent accuracy stat on it to begin with. I mean, this isn't quite the Spine Blade here, but 15 passive accuracy is quite good, and 15 healing power is really beneficial for anyone who has heals or self-heals. Or anyone who wants to be healed even, but more the self-healers and those who are healing others. But that being said, there are a lot of interesting ways to use Sylvie's sword outside of just putting it on Sylvie that I often forget about. I often forget that it's kind of job-based like this, but it is, and those folks do benefit quite a bit from it. So that is a general look at swords, what is best. And again, if you want to see these as little images, you can, I guess, take screenshots of the video. But you can also come check out my Discord, where I'll be hosting images of this, as well as other handy infographics and that kind of stuff as well. If you want to see more content like this, though, help me help you. Tell YouTube to send you more of my content by liking and subscribing. Seriously, it really helps, and I would appreciate it if nothing else. So help me help you, like and subscribe. Also, if you want to go that extra step, that extra mile, click that link in the description. It'll hook you up with the entirety of the Jackie Fox Media Empire. We're talking about other YouTube channels, podcasts, books that I've written, and other ways to support the channel, in addition to a Discord where you can come hang out with other friends of the Jackie Fox Media Empire. But all of that being said, I'm just happy to be here making another video for y'all. Happy to have y'all listening to my voice yet again, and happy to say I'll see you in the next one.